Hello, hello, welcome to Project Glow's Valentine's Day special. How you doing? Hi. Let's see who's here with me. Hi, hello, welcome. Well, thank you for spending this evening with me. You are officially my Valentine's Day date. So I don't know exactly what position you're in, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about my situation. So if you've been following my posts, then you will know that about 3.5 years ago, my ex left me out of the blue from one day to the next with no explanation. So I have been, in those 3.5 years, I was dating. I have been, I always say I've been everything from ditched, dumped, dangled, divorced. What else is there with a D? Yeah, that's been my 3.5 years until now. So I know exactly what it's like to be single on Valentine's, as I am now. I know exactly what it's like to be dating on Valentine's. That's a bit weird as well sometimes, in and out. Also, I know exactly what it feels like the first Valentine's Day after the breakup of a marriage or after going through a divorce. So I can tell you what that feels like. And I'm going to be unbelievably honest with you. In the beginning of the day, I was doing really, really well. I woke up, I completely forgot about it, other than for work purposes. I was in my flow, in my creation, and then in my creative state, and then because I've just had one housemate move out and another housemate move in, there were a lot of boxes that had to be moved around. And so as I was opening boxes, there was, I know the universe has a sense of humor, there was a Valentine's Day card from the last Valentine's Day before my ex left me. And it said something along the lines of looking forward to being with you forever. And that just melted me down into absolute oblivion. And then I had to walk my own talk in a way and get to this place where I was pulling myself together, lots of self-care, lots of self-compassion. Oh my goodness. So I'm just going to have a look in the comments and see how you guys doing and how many of you are around and are here. So I'm just going to have a look. Alrighty. Okay, so one of the things that I really like, I'm just going to show you this little thing that I got ages and ages ago. It's from a company, I don't even know what it's called, so I'm just going to show you. It's a little box, and it says, "You complete me." It's like a token gift for Valentine's Day. I kind of bought it for myself a couple of years ago, and you can see it's like a little heart on it, and it's in a little box like that, and the middle piece comes out. The middle piece is a heart, and basically what it is I'm gonna kind of put it together. It's basically a puzzle piece that makes up a heart. Like, for instance, you can see that it goes together like that, and I have written on the back exactly what self-love is. So one of the elements of self-love is self-awareness. Another element of self-love is, I'm just going to put that in. Another element is self-acceptance. You have self-discovery. We have self-compassion. We have self-esteem, self-development. Oh, this one is cool. Self-respect, self-ownership. So you own your story, you own who you are, you own your light side and your dark side. We have self-care, and here was the piece I was looking for right at the bottom that fits underneath, which is self-knowledge. So you can see that this on the front builds a nice little heart, and so these pieces all add onto there. I'm going to take a picture of it later in the comments below. I'm going to give you a little idea of all the different elements of what self-love is. So tonight's topic, I want to go into exactly how to fall in love with yourself, Well, because you've probably seen your Facebook feed all day long with lots of people posting about lovey-dovey hearts and chocolates and flowers. Then you get the other side of the coin, which is people saying, oh no, this is all complete commercialization. And then you'll have seen a couple of posts about the only love there truly is self-love. And you'll see me post my thing as well, that, you know, that's really the last thing you want to hear, and I'm not going to insult you with that kind of thing, that if you are single on Valentine's Day, that yes, self-love is such an important part. It's the cornerstone of everything, but also on a day like today where everybody is celebrating their external partner, I'm not going to go into the drivel of how, you know, the only love that there is on the outside, because hell no, we all like to be with people. You're human. It is human nature to want to be with someone. So I'm just going to check once again if you can see me, if you can hear me, give me an idea that you are here, that you're spending your Valentine's with me. Here we go. Let's just make sure. Yes. Here we are. Okay, cool. So what I was saying is you will have seen in your feed today that there were lots and lots of comments about self-love, that you need to fall in love with yourself. And although I'm a huge advocate of that, as you can tell, this is all I work with and teach, and this is what I'm so passionate about, is that very few people tell you exactly how to fall in love with yourself. And I've probably driven a whole lot of people completely crazy by sitting in their workshops at the beginning of my journey, when I realized that self-love was at the core of everything, at the core of everything you do and how you do it, there is self-love. And so when I began that journey of finding out what self-love is, how do you do it, how do you get it, how do you know if you don't have it, was that I went to a lot of people's workshops and drove them nuts by saying, how exactly do you fall in love with yourself? Because, you know, it's all well and good. Thanks, Victoria. It's all well and good, all these lovely posts, all these wonderful workshops that tell you to love yourself, but that's kind of like preaching to the choir. You know, we already know, most of you who've been in personal development for a while will know that self-love is a really big deal, but I don't know if anybody has ever sat you down and said, this is how. This is how. So I, in a way, became a little bit obsessed with how do you actually fall in love with yourself? And I went on this huge journey of education and experience, and also going through all the different life experiences that kind of bring you back to the same page. So one of the things that was very obvious in my life is if I look back on it now, almost every single element that broke down actually was the universe trying to lead me back to self-love. Because if I'm really honest, I have the t-shirt, the mouse mat and the mug of giving up on myself in a variety of different scenarios and ways. So right in the beginning, as I kind of like came out of high school and I started to realize that, you know, there were boys, I gave up on myself in such a huge way of trying to impress them. I joined all sorts of crazy clubs and sports teams just to make sure that I was loved and appreciated. I gave up on myself in terms of sports. Then I got heavily into sports, and I needed to be at the top of my game to be accepted, and I had a huge injury that kind of cut me back. And then I decided I was going to be amazing at university to study, and then I got glandular fever that cut me back as well a year. Then I thought I was going to be amazing at my job, and so I just poured myself into this job. And then I had problems getting a visa in South Africa because I'm birthed by German and I didn't have a visa. So every single time, and of course the big one is eventually when my ex-husband left me 3.5 years ago, and I was in hospital at the time when he left me, I got to that point where he hung up the phone on me, and I realized that he wasn't coming. And I realized that I had nothing, that I had absolutely nothing. I'd left my career, pretty much none of our investments were in my name. I had no income, I had nothing. I had given up absolutely every part of myself for this marriage. And although ideally that's nothing wrong with it, I just threw the baby out with the bathwater. I took it way too far. And then in the 3.5 years afterwards, when I decided that how hard could this be, I was still 40 and out and about, I can still go and date. I went to the online dating scene in London with an absolute vengeance, and realized that once again I was making exactly the same mistakes and same patterns over and over and over again. So at every point in my life when there was a big disaster or a big breakup or a huge kind of change and turn in events, it was always the universe trying to bring me back to myself and going, you've given away too much here, come back in, come back in. So I want you to think about in your life, when these big disasters have happened, whether it was breakups, divorces, also things like accidents and things going wrong at work or things just not working out, was it perhaps also not a great big wake-up call to come back to yourself, to come home to yourself? Things like being bullied is an invitation to come back to yourself. Heartbreak is an invitation to come back to yourself. Why? Well, it's pretty straightforward, because if you think about it, the level to which your heart breaks, the level, and this is not about, saying that we should all be these robotic human beings that don't feel anything. But if you really maintain those good boundaries and you had a life of your own and friends of your own and a fulfillment of your own, then the heartbreak that you feel for a breakup should sting, of course. It should hurt, but it shouldn't carry on for years and years and years down the line. And I certainly was in that case. I pretty much cried solidly for 6 months. Part of that was, of course, the breakdown of a huge chapter of my life, but also I had invested every part of myself into that. I had given up so much. So when that breakup came, it was a huge, ginormous wake-up call to say, hey, you invested yourself too much, gave up too much of yourself. And so the journey that I had to then go on was the journey of coming home to myself. All right, so self-love. My little bugbear in this self-love story is that nobody tells you how. Nobody tells you how. Everybody goes, you must love yourself. The only way to find your soulmate is to love yourself. Yeah, how many of those people have actually sat down and told you exactly step by step by step how? Now, I had a huge argument with one of the great gurus of self-love in the industry out there, and he said that it was just something that happens. And I said, that's absolutely baloney in my book. It's not something that just happens. Everything in life, whether it is the structure of your eye, the way your body breathes, including things like emotions, including things like heartbreak and self-love, everything has a sequence, a structure, and a recipe. It has a sequence and a structure and a way of doing it, a way of learning it. So this idea that everything is sort of, that we can, map DNA down to its smallest point, but somehow self-love is this nebulous thing. It's absolute baloney. Self-love has a sequence, a structure, and a science to it. There is, like a recipe, you put in the butter, you put in the flour, and that brings you a cake. But most of you have gone butter, flour, what have we done? Butter, flour, sugar, butter, flour, sugar, butter, flour, sugar, and gone, oh, why does my cake never rise? That's because you've never had self-raising flour. You've never had the yeast in it. And that's why I say to most people, and I was certainly in that place where I thought, I'm just terrible at self-love, because somewhere I read that if I have self-depreciating thoughts, that must mean that I have bad self-love. That is also in that big box called baloney. Because the truth is that every part of you, every part of the universe, everything around you is made up of light and dark. And as a result, you as a person have light and dark within you. You have strengths and you have weaknesses. And self-love isn't getting rid of all the things that are weakness or shadow. It's about embracing the whole. You know that yin and yang sign with the light and the dark? Self-love is having compassion for all of it, even the part of you that cannot accept its entirety. Even the part of you that thinks that having a shadow side is bad news, you need to have compassion for the part of you that cannot have compassion. It is a very big deal. Self-love isn't being Mary Poppins or some wonderful version of a Teletubby. It is about embracing all of you, because at the end of the day, this is the biggest misunderstanding and misinformation that is out there about love. Love is the inclusion of because and in spite of. I know that's a big sentence, but I want you to think about somebody you love, maybe a pet, maybe a child, maybe a partner. I can tell you that if you're truly, truly honest, you can tell me a couple of things that absolutely annoys you about them. Now, that isn't being critical, that's being real, because that person has a light side and a dark side, and you love them for all of it. And this is when you love other things. So, for instance, if you say, oh, I love mountain biking, that means that you gladly take in the cost, the pain, the falling over, all of those things, because you love the totality of it. When you love a person, you say, I love you for the good bits and the bad bits, because they are part of who you are. And this is where self-love has been misconstrued as well, is that self-love is loving yourself for your light side, your strengths, as well as your dark side and your shadow. So a lot of people go, how is that even possible? I don't want to love myself for the shitty parts about myself. Well, this is where the work really starts, is because the parts of you that are your shadow, the parts of you that aren't the nice and bright and shiny things, and those of us who are people pleasers, hello, yeah, I got that t-shirt as well. Reformed people pleaser. We like to only show the human beings that surround us our good sides, because somewhere deep down we are terrified that if we really show all of ourselves, they'll run a mile. Guess what? They're as terrified of that as you are. And you've gone through this probably the whole of today. You saw the whole of Facebook, which is it's so ironic, isn't it? Facebook face value, and we all get suckered into this idea, and yet you and I and the rest of the world, we only really post ourselves when we're having highlights. So it's face value, Facebook face value. But again, like everything else on the planet, Facebook has a light side and a dark side. The light side is the connection, the business value, the being in touch with friends that you had 10, 20, 30 years ago. The downside? Well, that's the illusion. If you get suckered into thinking that life is one-sided, especially if on Facebook today you saw an ex that now has a baby or got married or is with somebody else at, in a record speed of time, and they're just putting up these beautiful pictures of them going on holiday and is everything perfect. I guarantee you that they have a relationship that has a light side and a shadow side. They're with a person who isn't magically better than you. They are different than you. But that person that they're with also has a light side and a dark side. But what I want to come back to today is the how to fall in love with yourself. And as I said, I've been obsessed with it for years and years and years, because I realized that I'd gone through so much personal development, a decade. I had been to every big course that was out there, and I was still completely and absolutely pathetic at self-love. I knew I could rattle backwards every single quote that was out there. I had paid every single course ticket, you name it, but just by doing personal development, please do not fall into that great big trap of thinking that just doing personal development is magically going to improve your self-love. That's not how this works. Self-love is something very, very specific, and it has a sequence, a structure, and there is a science to it. So, first of all, the first question that I had about self-love, how do we get into a place of lacking self-love? Like, how did we ever get here? Because you've probably heard or read this whole idea. I'm sure you've seen those people with a $100 note or something, a £50 note, and they crumple it up and they spit on it and they stamp on it, and then they go, oh, look, it's still worth the same value. The whole point that's trying to illustrate is that the value of who you are never changes. You are always born with the birthright of full self-confidence, self-esteem and self-worth, but what happens to us is our conditioning. Okay, so one of the biggest things that you need to understand is that lack of self-love isn't something that you were born with, because as babies, when you look at the research and you look at their development, they are outgoing, they are happy. Of course, some of them are a little more held back, so there can be trauma. Basically, it's all about trauma. Trauma robs you of your self-confidence, self-worth, and self-love. Now, that trauma can be super early on or further down in life, but trauma is all about your perception. Your perception, the way that you perceive yourself and the way that you perceive life is ultimately what determines your state of self-worth. Now, the great thing is that if the only thing that really evaluates your self-worth is yourself, that's pretty good. But the big problem is nobody taught you. And perhaps you even grew up in an environment where you didn't have a blueprint. So you didn't see it from your environment, your parents. Maybe there was, maybe there were money problems. Maybe there were all sorts of little tiny messages when you grew up that said, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. Whether or not that was truly the case or you just perceived it that way, what matters at the end of the day is the amount of trauma that it causes. Also, one of the things I have to say is you've got to remember that self-love has something to do with your mind and your brain. Now, that sounds bizarre because to most people it would seem that's the same thing. But I want you to separate the two things just for a moment. Your mind is what thinks, but the organ of your brain has something to do with it as well. That's why the 5 core things, the 5 core pillars of self-love do matter when it comes to having a good self-esteem, and that's the way you breathe, the way you sleep, the way you eat, the way you drink, and the way that you move. Those are the 5 core elements that really determine the brain health, your brain health. If you have a brain that doesn't get breathed properly, is that even the correct way? That doesn't get proper oxygen, doesn't get movement, doesn't get the right nutrients, doesn't get the right sleep, no amount of thinking yourself I love myself is ever going to change, because it is a cycle, isn't it? Your perception affects your thoughts then have an effect on your body, they then cause action, and so it goes round and round and round in circles. Now, the big thing I want to talk about before I dive into how to actually fall in love with yourself is that self-love is like a 3-legged stool. Probably in self-development and also in spirituality, you will have heard a lot about the trilogy, mind, body, spirit. What's the other one? There's a lot about the number 3 in numerology. Thanks, Steve. You just say, what is the best way to remind myself of the 5 pillars, because I keep forgetting. Well, I'll put them down. I'll write them in the comments. But I would put them up on a wall somewhere. So you guys have seen mine. I have a little pad where I actually track myself every day. So I track how much movement I've done. I track how much water I've drunk. I track how much what I've eaten, and also breathing. I have breathing meditations that I do during the day. So it's all about self-care. But tonight is more about self-love, because self-love and self-care are 2 different things. So tonight I want to concentrate on self-love, because that is the mind part and self-care is the action part. So if the mind part isn't in place, then you will probably keep forgetting the self-care, which is the action part. So, but thank you for that question. It's really good. The 3-legged stool of self-love is that a lot of people teach you about self-love, and I get very upset about it, on one-day workshops, which is just insane. I don't, people that purport they can teach you self-love on a one-day workshop, please don't fall for that. Go and enjoy yourself and think of it as surface level, because really self-love is a huge topic that is intertwined with self-care, that is intertwined with the trauma in your life, that is intertwined with the way you think, because half of the problem is that nobody taught you how to think well. And so the 3-legged stool that I talk about all the time is that You cannot be taught how to love yourself if you have not been taught about relationships, because self-love and relationships go hand in hand. And then further down the line, you cannot really teach somebody about self-love if you don't also teach them about how the world works, how the universe works, why shitty things happen to you, how you are on a journey, how the right thing is always happening to you at the right time, and that whatever bad thing is happening to you for a reason to grow you, and will always come at the right time when you're ready at it, with equal amount of support. So the three-legged stool is, you must learn how to fall in love with yourself, and you must learn about relationships. Please don't fall into that pit where you think just because you're human, you know how to do relationships. It's just not the case. Nobody sat us down and taught us about relationship. Also, the third element is I bet you, and unless you've done some really hardcore personal development, you don't really understand how the world works. So self-love is a trilogy of how you work. So you need to know yourself. You need to understand why people do the things they do. Why are these other people doing these things? That is a huge bracket. And then also, why is life doing this stuff to you? Because let me tell you, people are teaching self-love. The moment your relationship tanks or something really difficult comes in your life, like redundancy, money problems, divorce, ill health, your self-love goes right out the window. It's because self-love has to be taught in conjunction with understanding human beings, relationships, and understanding the universe. Why do the things that happen to me happen? How do I move through them and come out the other end? All right. Also, self-love isn't just buying yourself a bunch of flowers and going to the gym every once in a while, or making sure that you drink a liter of water. Self-love is affected through every single area of your life. I'm just going to read a couple of them. It's about how you manage your finances, how you really committed to your fitness, how you relate to food. I mean, how do you really look after your food? Is your diet full of sugary drinks, just, forgetting to eat, just taking rubbish stuff in, not watching your blood sugar? Or are you paying that a lot of attention? Do you really make sure that you get optimum nutrition, that you really pay attention? And a lot of the lovely mummies out there, do you just eat what's left over with the kids? Or actually, do you plan for yourself? My lovely friend Tara has taught me this one as a mummy, do you have a commitment to feed yourself as well as your children? So also there's a category of friends. Are you letting people in your life that are really not good for you? That's a pretty shitty self-care. Are you, also in your mind, do you practice good mental hygiene? Or do you just let your mind run loose and tank down into depression, into the high of infatuation? Do you really have good mental hygiene? It's a beautiful word. We all clean our houses, and we're all really good with managing, making sure that this area of our life is good, but nobody ever thinks about managing and cleaning and keeping good housekeeping in your mind. Also, there's your mind. How do you treat your mind, your body, your spirit? There are 12 categories of your life. And a lot of people, when I ask them, how good is your self-love? And they go, okay. I'm like, yeah, let's look at your life. Let's have a look. How are your finances going? How are your relationships going? How is your relationship with food, with fitness, with sleep? How is your relationship with your environment? Does your house always look like a tip, or do you actually take time? And this is one of the things about taking time. We all have the same amount of time in our lives. You, me, and everyone on this planet has the same 24 hours. It's just, do you make time to go to the gym? Do you make time to manage your finances? Do you make time to look and make sure that you've got enough food in the fridge and that you've got good quality food? So, but that also comes back to, again, your self-care is only as good as your self-love. So the mind has to come before the action. And the problem with the part of your mind that's all about self-love is nobody taught you how to do it. Nobody taught you. So how on earth were you meant to get this? So I really want you to take that on, is beating yourself up about not having your finances in check, not having your food and your fitness in check. that's pointless. Let's look at why. You know, it's like giving a Ferrari to a teenager and then watching that teenager drive that Ferrari into a tree. And, you know, it's like you would never be upset because it's like they don't know how to drive. So please don't be upset with yourself about not being able to self-care properly if nobody ever sat you down and taught you how to love yourself, which is the bulk of what I want to do with you today. Okay, I'm going to run through this, but I just want you to hear the concepts, because what's really important is a lot of the personal development industry talks a lot about self-love in very, very superficial terms. You need to go say nice things to yourself in the mirror. You need to go buy yourself a lovely bunch of flowers. You need to, I don't know, have Epsom salt baths. And although all of those things are lovely, they are literally just skimming the surface. What we really need to do is dive down and go into 3 different areas. And my courses are set up in that way. First, you need to be taught how to think. You need to learn how to manage your mind, because if you don't manage your mind and understand how to actually think, nothing down the rest of the line of your thoughts, your actions, your behaviors are going to have any chance if that first thing isn't in place. So a friend of mine asked me to explain that a little bit more in depth. And I said, you need to remember that, I'm sure you've all seen that picture, and I'll post it in the comments, of that iceberg. The top of the iceberg peeking out of the water is your conscious mind, the part of you that is aware of thinking. The piece at the bottom, that huge piece of the iceberg at the bottom, is your subconscious mind. That is the part of you that you aren't necessarily aware of, but you can become aware of it by questioning. You can actually dive down and underneath by questioning. So she said to me, do I work at the conscious mind or a subconscious mind? I said, I don't work at either of the level, because unless the water that iceberg is floating in is of good quality, you just have crap quality ice. So forget the conscious or the subconscious, because they will take care of themselves once you have the right environment. And that environment is how your brain thinks. So in first line, self-love is how your brain thinks. In second line is you need to then take that new thinking and apply it to self-love. So step by step by step, and I'm going to show you these 7 steps in a minute. You then need to, once you've trained your mind how to think, you then need to lead it through the 7 steps of self-love, and then come out the other end, and then one by one by one by one, apply it into every section of your life. Because people always say, you know, I want this kind of relationship, I want this kind of business, I want this kind of a house, I want this kind of a holiday. And I always say, whoa, can we just slow down? First, teach your mind how to think, then teach your heart how to fall in love with yourself, and then let's see who you are then. Because most of the clients I work with, by the time we are through that stage 1, how to think, and stage 2, how to heal your heart, they go, oh, wow, you know, I didn't even know that that was important to me. Or then they change careers and relationships or the way they dress. Because actually, when we remove all those blocks, and this is one of my favorite quotes by Rumi, is Rumi says, it is not your job to seek love, but to remove the barriers that you have built within it. Now, you could take that as another reason to bash yourself up. Oh, I've built barriers against it. You didn't know any different. But what Rumi was trying to explain, that the barriers to love and self-love ultimately are the barriers within ourselves, and that only our mind has built those barriers. So the upside of that is great, your mind built it. Let's get your mind to take it back down. The downside is, if you don't know how, you will simply loop in those self-sabotaging thoughts over and over and over again. Because unless your brain has a channel to move, and that is where I teach you how to think, it will just loop over and over and over again. And so then when something loops, it then establishes beliefs. And then you will start having beliefs about self-worth, about self-confidence, about money. And so it loops. That's why I have to teach your brain a new way of thinking. Right. So I'm just going to have a look at the comments below. to see if you have any burning questions. Please ask your questions about self-love. This is the moment. If it's something you're thinking about, I guarantee you everybody else is thinking about it as well. So if you have any questions about self-love, then please ask those questions now. Thank you guys for being on here with me tonight. Happy Valentine's. I hope you're having a lovely time. I said earlier in the video, oh, there we go. Helen, you said self-care can sometimes feel selfish. How can we reconcile this? Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Great question. Okay. Self-care only feels selfish to someone that has boundary issues. Okay, first of all. So if self-care feels selfish to you, and I've been there plenty of times, ooh, you know, what if I say no to this event? Or what if I say, you know, today I just have to unplug? What you don't understand, that actually taking care of yourself is more important to the interaction between you and the other person than anything else. Because, so the only reason why you would feel selfish about self-care is if you thought that your action of selfishness, and I call it self-fulfillment really, because at the end of the day, you can't pour from an empty cup. Okay, so that selfishness, you only feel guilty about it is if you think that by looking after yourself, the other person is going to have a downside. So for instance, let's say, perfect example, or maybe give me your example. Give me your example of when you felt selfish. So today, a whole lot of people reached out to me and I just had to say, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you. I've had a really big weekend. My one housemate moved out and another housemate moved in, and I just had to self-care today. So I had to take time to meditate. I had to take time to really look after my food and sort myself out. I only feel guilty about that if I don't understand that me removing myself has benefits for the other people. So what kind of benefits would there be? That they hang out with other friends, that they don't rely on me so much, that they understand that I'm not always there for all the time in any case, so I'm giving a more rounded, more whole approach that, you know, I'm light and dark. I can be there for someone and also for myself. But most importantly, what I think is so important, in a world where none of us really were taught how to self-care, when you self-care, even though maybe a friend of yours will kind of go in the first place, you are setting the standard, you're setting the example, and that allows other people to care for themselves as well. But at the end of the day, self-care only feels selfish if you are in the habit of overgiving and overcaring in the first place. Because if you understand that middle line between being caring and careless, you know, there's that little, the place in the middle is being careless about yourself or being too selfish. There's certainly a broad spectrum, but the middle place is where you're there for yourself and others, but you know how to manage that really properly. And that's what we call healthy boundaries. Always people think, oh, healthy boundaries are to, you know, saying no to the wrong kind of a man or something like that. Healthy boundaries are about the yin and the yang, and also the infinity sign, that ebb and flow between myself and others, particularly difficult for us overgivers in relationships because we lose ourselves, but also really challenging for mummies. It's like, actually, it's really important to pull back from your children, give and self-care, care for the others, care for self. It's everything in life is an ebb and a flow. And also withdrawing from your environment is really, really important for that environment, not just for you. Self-care isn't just about you. When you withdraw into self-care, you're setting a great example. You're stimulating the people to have a more, varied environment where they get other people's input as well. Bridget says, giving, receiving has to be in balance always. But, you know, that is so hard for us. If we don't have self-love, then that middle place is so difficult to manage. Like, where is that? You know, it's too much, too little. Where is that middle place? Steve just said, it's okay right now while I'm consciously aware of self-care, self-love, but what can I do to catch myself quicker when I start to spiral into unconscious negative thoughts? great question. So what you need to do is we all have to build a self-care cocoon. So that's when I talk about the 5 essentials. So the 5 essentials are breath, movement, food, water, and sleep. Okay. I have a self-care cocoon with these things, and I consciously monitor them because part of self-care is to self-parent. I know that I spin out of control when I don't keep my commitment to those 5 core elements. And so I track them, and it's one of the most important things that self-development taught me is to measure and track your self-care actions, because as soon as, if I look on my pad, like in the past week, I've had a lot of movement. There's a lot of boxes in my house moving backwards and forwards. If I look on my self-care pad, it is absolutely mayhem. I didn't keep track of my self-love. I didn't keep in terms of water, food. It just went all over the place. And that's how I know I need to catch myself again. So the way that I catch myself is recommit to time to meditate, time to breathe. The most important part in that self-care environment is to have a planner or a diary to manage yourself. You must track and manage your life, because that's when you'll know super quick that you spiral out into negative patterns. And then also you need to build a breakdown and a recovery. You need to have a plan. That's one of the things that I really teach in my programs, and I talk about it over and over again. Like today, I knew by the time I got up that I had pushed myself way too far. So I immediately go into that cocoon. I needed to breathe, take time to breathe, water, food, sleep. I come back to that habit as soon as I'm aware of that my 5 core elements of self-care are out of control. I bring myself back to center. All right. So now, thank you for your questions, by the way. I'm going to go through the 7 steps of self-love. Okay, I'm going to go through these quite a pace, but you don't need to worry. I talk about these 7 steps all the time, over and over again. But what you need to just keep in mind that your mind will take from those 7 steps exactly what you need to hear. And I will post the 7 steps in the comments below as well. So Helen Jane just said, my self-care includes fresh air and sunshine. Yeah, your self-care might include jazz or playing with your pets or, whatever. This is what's so beautiful about going on a self-care and a self-love journey is what's right for you is not right for me, but that unless you go on that journey consciously, you will never know what exactly you need. For instance, I know for me, if I start to spiral out of control, or even as an everyday, I need to read or hear something spiritual or personal development all the time. Tara just said, mine is a hot shower before bed. Exactly. Like, what is it that is self-care for you? And as you go consciously on that journey, you will figure that out. And I can't do that for you. I can't tell you, you need to wear a green shirt and you need to have a blue blanket. This is something you find out for yourself. So thank you for those questions. And thank you so much for sharing, because it's all completely different for you. All right, let's go through the 7 steps. Are you ready? Okay. Step number 1, you must smash your fantasy, because with everything in self-love, it is less about telling yourself you're beautiful, telling yourself you're amazing, telling yourself and all of that. What is much more important is the amount of self-love that you are losing every single day with the illusions and the fantasies that you have in your head. I'm going to tell you mine. If only I was thinner, if only I was cleverer, if only I had a successful business, if only. This is the bulk of energy that you lose every single day by thinking and worrying about what if and if only. If only you had a perfect body, if only you were in a relationship. That's the big one on Valentine's today. If only you were in an amazing relationship, then everything would be better. Hell no, it would just be different, because every situation that you will ever be in life, that you have been in the past and will be in the future, will always have challenge and support. 10 years ago, you had challenge and support. 5 years in the future, you will have challenge and support. If you have an amazing body, you have challenge and support. If you have an amazing relationship, you have challenge and support. If you have tons of money and a successful business, you will just have different problems. Because guess what? Problems and challenges are there to grow you. They are in exactly the right place to grow you. They are not things to punish you. They are certainly not shit that comes up, excuse my swearing because I get so angry about this entire thing that by thinking bad thoughts, you're going to bring on bad events. It is absolute baloney, I'm sorry to say. I know it is a very big movement in the personal development. If that was true, we would all be on our daily commute with all the scary monsters out of children's dreams. It's just baloney. You cannot think up bad things happening to you. You can have a negative attitude and therefore tune into the negativity more, but you are not sick today because you had bad thoughts. That is absolute bollocks. But what you do lose energy every single day in is that you get lost in the if only, what if, and you start to think that everything would be better when. The wheninitis. Wheninitis is a disease of thinking that everything will be magically better when you have, I don't know, that baby, that relationship, that job, that success. You need to catch yourself. This is the first step. Ask yourself, really? Things are really going to be better? No, they're just going to be different. There is no such thing as a one-sided event or a one-sided person or a one-sided time in your life. There has always been equal benefit and drawback, and those two things are in exactly the right place to grow you. Number 2, you need to own your own beauty. Now, have you ever seen beautiful kaleidoscope? You know, those looking glass things. Your kaleidoscope is completely different from my kaleidoscope. I want you to imagine that you are in a beautiful garden full of flowers. You couldn't say that a tulip is prettier than a rose, although some people will think that they have preference over one than the other. But if you really look at flowers, there is no such thing as one flower being more beautiful than the other. But what is the case is that their distribution of color will be completely different. And that's what happens in human beings as well. I have a particular kaleidoscope of beauty. So in my world, and this will shock some of you, we are not all physically as beautiful as each other. One of my dearest friends from high school ended up being a very, very famous model. I can tell you she is physically more beautiful than me. She has a modeling contract. Her body is to die for. I don't have a problem with that, because what was very, very obvious right from the word go when we were growing up is that my beauty was in a different part of my system. So I have a lot of beauty in mind. I have a lot of beauty in soul. I have a lot of my beauty distribution in a different part of my kaleidoscope. That doesn't make it better or worse than hers. It just makes it different. But the idea that all of your beauty is just in your physical aspect is just not true. Your beauty is distributed over all the areas of your life in very specific regards to your life journey, your life purpose, and attracting the certain people that need to come in the certain events. So your beauty is exactly right for your life path and your purpose. And so actually the way that we find out your purpose is by looking at where is the beauty, what are the light parts of your life and your system and your body, because that will tell us exactly what your purpose is, because you are perfectly designed to the tiniest little degree for exactly the life purpose that you were born to do. Okay, so that is owning your beauty. All right? Step 3 is you need to dance with your demons. So a lot of us lose love every single day because we think, oh, if only that divorce didn't happen, if only that accident if it didn't happen, if only I didn't grow up with that family, if only I didn't. So all the things that you thought were obstacles in your life are actually little mini trampolines to get you to higher levels of consciousness and learning. So we need to dance with your demons. We identify everything that you think is wrong with your life, and we prove to you that every single thing Every single thing in that collection is in exactly the right place at the right time for the right purpose, because until you went through exactly that experience, you couldn't have arrived here. The universe does not do things for shits and giggles. It is on track whether you believe it to be or not. That is why I need to teach you how to think, so that when difficult things come along, you immediately see that actually this is perfectly on track at the perfect right time with the perfect support, exactly lining you up perfectly for your life purpose. Nothing is out of place here. The only thing you have to manage is what's between your two ears, and that is damn hard to do. Let me tell you, that is nothing simple whatsoever. And on top of it, nobody taught you how to think properly. Even those of us who went to really great schools and university, no, that's what to think. That's not how to think. So how to think is the first thing that I need to teach you. Okay. Step 4 is becoming rejection bulletproof, because a lot of the trauma that you've had in your life has to do with rejection and abandonment. But actually, when you understand what rejection really is, which is just a great way of redirecting you back into path, then you will understand that actually rejection is a very important part of your life, because people always like to think that they're born here and then at the end of their life they will have achieved some sort of greatness. How on earth do you think your life is going to do that in the middle? Well, your life is going to go, okay, we need to get this person, this lovely girl, from here to here. How are we going to do that? Okay, we're going to give her this support and this challenge, and then we're going to redirect her here, and then we need to take that away, and then we need to come back here and push. And can you see that's what happened? It kind of like aligns you. It pushes you, support, challenge, support, challenge. It constantly lines you up. Like I say in the bowling alley, everybody laughs at the kiddie rails. Everybody thinks there are restrictions, but actually your restrictions are making sure that you bounce, and you hit the 10 strike at the top. The things that are going wrong in your life are going absolutely perfectly right. The only thing that tells you that they're wrong is your mind, if you haven't been taught how to see the blessing, the lesson, and the message in disguise. That's what I do when I teach you how to manage your mind. So rejection is redirection. When you understand why rejection is there, then you just go, whoops, okay, you're going to readjust for a while. Oh, well, yes, okay. Well, I've moved from here to here, but because I know that there's always benefit, drawback, always light, dark, it's just a different path, but is the path that is always keeping you on track. You will never get exactly what you want, but you will always get exactly what you need. And then usually in hindsight, you look back at your life and you go, whoa, that was uncomfortable, but that was exactly what I needed. And I'm so grateful, because you know that whole bollocks about forgiveness? It's one of my most hated words. The mentor and the teacher that I worked with for many, many years, Dr. John DiMartini, he says, unless you can say, thank you for giving me this experience, I'm so grateful, I love you, thank you very much, you haven't forgiven anything. Because a lot of people try and do this forgiveness thing, and that's also forgiving your life, you know. A lot of people are angry at their life. I'm plenty angry of my life when I'm out of balance, and then I bring myself into balance. I go, okay, I get it. This is why this happened. There's always balance and support. But yeah, forgiveness, for most people, most of those hollow quotes on the internet, absolute bollocks. Forgiveness, true forgiveness, not denial, not shoving it under the carpet or letting time grow some weeds over it. True forgiveness is only when you can say, thank you for giving me the experience of this event that shaped me and grew me and supported me in just the right way. Okay. Step 5, you need to tame your triggers. What's that? So I talk a lot about the crocodile and the owl. You've seen probably my video. If not, you can go back through the videos. It's all about your reaction and your responsiveness. So reaction, and this is another thing, when people say you have to trust your gut, oh my God, that drives me up the pole, because for most human beings, when their head isn't connected with your heart, your gut feeling is just your reptilian brain, your crocodile, is my crocodile here? No, it's upstairs. Your crocodile jumping out and ripping somebody's head off. Your crocodile is the most ancient part of who you are. It's the part of you that responds, that reacts. very quickly. Sorry, that reacts. It's the reactivity in you. The higher mind is that part of you that can see the bigger picture, that floats above everything. So it's about really understanding that you need to move from a place of instant response, which is just your reptilian brain, to, through your breath, get into a place where you can see your life from a higher perspective. Okay, you need to understand who or what triggers you, because your self-love and your handle on life is only as strong as your ability to hold the tension of the reaction. Because if you're just this volatile creature that goes, oh, this is nice, oh, this is bad, nice, bad, nice, bad, nice, bad, you're volatile. That tells me straight away that you have not been taught and you do not know how to manage your brain. And what Dr. John DeMartini talks about a lot is that most of the human beings on this planet live in that absolute crazy state of almost a bipolar existence, living in the duality of this is good, this is bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. It drives your blood pressure, your blood sugar, it drives you insane. But it also has something to do with instant gratification. Because when you're in that volatile state where you don't understand that everything in life has light and dark at the same time, you get drawn into this instant gratification state, which really is more of a reptilian brain response without having learned that your higher mind actually can hold the tension. Everything great in your life that you want in terms of financial stability, relationship stability, longevity in your body, long-term health, requires you to not give into the reactivity of your reptilian brain and the instant gratification that it wants you to have, but to hold the tension of investing now and reaping later. Finances, health, relationships require all of those things. For you to be able to do that, you need to understand how your brain reacts, and you need to tame those triggers. Right, number 6, you need to learn to speak your truth, because this is what most of us don't do, especially in relationships. We do not know how to say how we really feel. That has 2 parts. Number 1, if you've been a people pleaser all your life, you've grown up in a place and an environment where people don't really say what they feel, you won't even know how you feel. I went for years and years and years not really understanding myself and not really knowing what I wanted. And then days later thinking, oh, geez, that was something stupid I did. I didn't want to say yes to that thing. Maybe you are in that place where you don't even know how you feel. A lot of people are in that place. But then also you know how you feel, but you have no idea how to say it to the person that you most importantly need to say it to, your family, your business partner, your relationship, your lover. It's because nobody taught you how to do that. Because for most of us, we are terrified that if we really say how we truly feel, then that means nobody will love us. Well, that's not the case, is it? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Last one, step 7, is you need to power up your purpose. If you are not aware of your purpose, you're like a ship without a rudder and a sail. You're just going to be bopping in life going, oh, why is this happening? Oh my God, why did that person say that? Oh, everything is on top of me. The moment you have purpose and you understand your purpose, and it's not about finding your purpose, I guarantee you, if I sit down with you for an hour, I can tell you exactly what your purpose is, because your entire life will tell that story over and over and over and over again. Once you understand what your purpose is, you are just like this ship through the greatest storms. You will know how to pitch that sail, and that rudder will keep you strong, and you will understand that there's always support and always challenge, getting you just into the right direction. Okay, I'm going to run them through again. So number 1, you need to smash the fantasy that someday, if you achieve X, Y, Z, your life will be better. Absolute rubbish. You need to own your own beauty. Your beauty is perfect for you. My beauty is perfect for me. But please, let's not go through that whole absolute drivel that we're all physically beautiful in the same way. No! I'm probably somewhere on a 5 and a 6 in my body, but I bloody rock my head. I'm a 10 out of 10 in my head, But that's because I understand my purpose, and I'm under no illusion that being a 10 out of 10 in your body is better than being this. Is my friend from high school, who is the societal epitome of beauty. She has a lot of downsides with that body of hers. She has to keep it in perfect shape. A lot of people can't see past her beauty. Oh my God, are there downsides to having a 10 out of 10 body? Are there upsides to being a 5 and a 6? Heck yeah. But that is something you will only discover when you come to a workshop and you really work through it. Okay, number 3, you need to dance with your demons. This part of your life that has gone wrong has actually gone perfectly right to get you on track to where you need to go. Number 4, you need to become rejection bulletproof and understand that rejection is just redirection to the absolute life purpose that is calling your heart to go there. You need to become aware of your triggers if you don't understand what makes you react, and that reaction is telling you where your life is out of balance and how to rebalance your brain. You are never going to master your life, because you must manage your mind and heal your heart to master your life. You need to speak your truth. That's step 6, because if you don't say how you are already telling people how you really feel, and sometimes you're not even aware of that. You need to be really honest with yourself and become aware of exactly who you are, what you need, and then learn how to communicate that to others. And the last one is you need to power up your purpose. And those are your 7 steps on how to fall in love with yourself. Woof, I've gone through them. Give me your feedback, guys. What sticks out in your brain? What did you hear out of that list? I will post this list in the comments below. And of course, this is part of my courses. They're all going to launch really, really soon. I know I've been saying they're going to launch. I'm learning a lot on how to put these into courses, because actually, especially as women, we need to learn in a group environment, because sometimes the biggest learning that you get is bouncing ideas and hearing other people talk about their story. So they're all in the pipeline, but I will close you with these couple of highlights that I take away from this all the time. Nobody can teach you about self-love if you don't also learn about relationships and the wisdom and the divine perfection of the universe. Because if you teach self-love, the moment your relationship goes down the toilet or your life presents you with a challenge, usually your self-love goes out the toilet. Then the other big thing is self-love isn't this nebulous, superficial thing about running yourself a bath or buying yourself flowers. It's about mastering your life by learning how to manage your mind and healing your heart. That's how you learn. That's how you fall in love with yourself. Manage your mind, heal your heart, master your life. There are 2 elements that are really important. Self-love and self-care. They are 2 different things. Self-love is the mindset. Self-care is the self-love in action. So when somebody says, oh, I think I love myself okay, I said, okay, let's sit down, look at your life. How's it going in relationships? How's it going in finances? Your life will always tell the state of your self-love. Please do not beat yourself up about not being able to love yourself or perfectly being able to self-care, because self-care only comes after self-love. Your mindset has to be in the right place. Nobody taught you how to self-love. There's a lot of misinformation and just rubbish out there about self-love, that it's just, ooh, it's this thing that you can get to if you do enough yoga, and I love yoga, or look at yourself in the mirror. It's not going to happen until you take active charge of learning how to fall in love with yourself. That is all I have for you right now. I'm going to quickly have a look at the comments. Please type in your questions now. I'm going to have a look at the comments quickly. See if there's anything else that's come up. You've told me a bit about what you do for self-love and self-care. Please, any burning questions you have that I can just enlighten you on in this moment. Helen Jane wrote, rejection is redirection. Love this. I know. Once you really understand the bigger spiritual purpose and the divine perfection, it really helps that whole story about heartache, the heartache of heartbreak. Because ideally, when somebody leaves your life or something leaves your life, if you really understand why this happens and how it happens, the lesson, the blessing, the message, and the gift, then it's going to be a much shorter wobble than drawing out into years or months. All right. That seems to be it for this evening. Thank you so, so much for joining me on this special Valentine's Day Project Glow Facebook Live. I want you to look, I'm going to post, I want you to look a little bit into the feed on my personal feed. I wrote a bit about having your soulmate with you at any time and at every time. It's if you really understand, and you probably saw in your feed all day today about this is what you need to do to attract your soulmate. Yeah, there's only one problem with that is your soulmate is with you already. Just sometimes your soulmate is in one person and sometimes your soulmate is in many. So this idea of attracting your soulmate is complete BS because your soulmate is with you already. And I'm not talking about your soulmate is within you. No, I'm talking about on the outside. The person or the energy of the soulmate is either in one person or spread through many. So right now I'm single. My soulmate energy is spread over my friends, my family, my colleagues, my pets, my business. Right now, for this stage of my life, my soulmate is encapsulated in the many. When I then get into a relationship, it's then encapsulate more into one, and then it moves into the many. So throughout your whole life, your soulmate energy has been with you all along, sometimes in one person, and then sometimes in many people. Then it goes into one, then it goes into the many. One, many. There isn't one better than the other, because in the one, you then get a bit more isolated, a bit more inward focused, and relationships are obviously cauldrons of personal development, because you can't hide your baggage in them. It will come up. But then in the many, you get a wider perspective, you get a wider net of support. So it goes one, many, all the way through your life. Right now, for this stage of my life, in the many, it's how it needs to be for the purpose that for the stage of life that I'm in right now and for what I'm trying to accomplish. So if you read that Facebook feed today and you go, this is what you need to attract your soulmate, you go, I know better, because my soulmate is right here, right now, either in the one or the many. And either if it's the one or the many, it's perfect for you right now. So rather than asking, where is my soulmate? Ask, where is my soulmate right now already, and how is the form that it's in perfect for me right now? That's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much. I will answer in the comments for a while. So if you have any more questions, please look in the comments. Tell me what's going on. How did you react to those 7 steps and this topic? And also, please be sure to share this with somebody that you really knows needs to hear these things right now. Valentine's Day is tough for many of us in many ways. And I had a blip during the day as well. You know, it's not about being perfectly in balance in your brain. It's about always returning to love, returning to self-love. It's, you know, everything in life, your heartbeat, your breath, the ocean, always has a movement away from self-love towards self-love. So it's about coming back to it, a return to love as you may. Thank you so much. I will see you on Sunday when I do my Sunday night self-care session. Until then, take care, lots of self-love, and look after yourself. Mwah. Thank you. Bye.